In this episode, I'm going to explain what sets thought leadership content apart from other marketing strategies. This video isn't about how to become a thought leader. That's a much bigger topic, and I address that in other episodes on the channel. So this episode is about something way more specific, and it's what thought leadership content actually looks like and how drastically different it is from most marketing strategies. There are 9 characteristics that define thought leadership content, and if your goal is to become a thought leader, you don't want to miss even one of them. Marketers often use the phrase thought leadership content as a buzzword so that their strategy sounds sophisticated, but in reality, it's rare for marketers to implement many of the characteristics that actually define what thought leadership content is and what makes it work. Ultimately, thought leadership content positions you as the thought leader, and it creates category ownership. A social media post where you share some wisdom doesn't do that. Now, you might be thinking that this is just a subtle nuance or that it's just semantics, so let me be more clear. Thought leadership is actually the opposite of what most marketers are telling you that it is. And that's why so many people are confused. It's why so many experts feel invisible and they're worried about becoming irrelevant. So now I'll show you something that will make this much more clear. On the screen here is a simple comparison between a social media influencer strategy and a thought leadership strategy. And what you'll notice is that they are almost complete opposites. So what we're going to do is walk through this graphic row by row, and I'll explain why each one of these differences matters and how they completely change the outcome of your content strategy. Because once you understand the differences, it will become obvious why most content strategies fail to position someone as a thought leader. Let's start with the first row. On the social media influencer side, the content is promotional, saying, "Look at me." But on the thought leader side, the content is helpful, answering their question. So the real difference here is where your attention is focused. Are you looking outward, trying to promote yourself, trying to sound impressive, trying to get attention? Or are you looking outward, asking how you can help someone who is struggling with a question? Thought leadership content is always outward facing. It's created in the service of the audience. So let me give you a great example. So this is a wonderful client of mine. Her name is Dr. Carrie Ann Perkins. She's a doctor and OBGYN, and she's created both types of content. At one point, she made a YouTube short with an exciting beat where she's dressed in a doctor's scrubs and she performed this choreographed dance. Now, while she's dancing, you can see that there's text above her head talking about women's health topics. Now, this video became her most popular piece of content, but it does absolutely nothing to position her as a thought leader. Now, compare that to the video she makes with my strategy, where she simply answers women's health questions. Now, there are many sources of traffic for her YouTube videos, and when we look at the YouTube analytics, we find that there are over 500,000 people per month watching her videos from YouTube search. This content positions her as a thought leader. So that's the difference between the two. One approach says, "Hey, look at me," and the other approach says, "How can I help you? What questions do you have?" One tries to impress the audience, the other shares expertise to answer the questions that people are already searching for. And that's the foundation of thought leadership content. Let's look at the second row. On the influencer side, the focus is on trending topics. A trending topic is short-lived. You're trying to ride a wave. You're hoping to be one of the first people talking about it, because if you're not early enough, you miss the wave entirely. Once that wave passes, the topic is no longer relevant, so the content has a very short lifespan. Now compare that to the thought leadership side, which focuses on evergreen topics. Instead of chasing trends, a thought leader looks for questions that their target audience is asking consistently. These are the questions that people are asking today, and they were asking them 5 years ago, and they'll be asking them 5 years from now. When you create content that answers these kinds of questions, they become evergreen. So that video or article, it keeps working for you because people keep searching for that question. It becomes a marketing machine that brings people to your content exactly when they need it. And unlike trending topics, you're not competing to ride a wave before it disappears. You're simply answering a question that people will continue to ask for years. That's the power of evergreen thought leadership content. Now let's look at the third row. On the influencer side, the content is entertaining, and on the thought leader side, the content is educational. When your goal is to entertain people, you constantly have to come up with something new. You can't repeat what you've done before, and you can't do what everyone else is already doing. You're trying to reinvent the wheel every single time. Your tone also changes. You're not just talking, you're presenting or you're performing. So your energy has to be elevated, and sometimes you're tempted to imitate creators that you've seen succeed on YouTube. Entertaining content is also much more complicated to produce. You usually can't just sit in a chair like I am here and talk to the camera for 10 minutes. You have to think of a lot of things ahead of time, such as the editing and the staging, the music, the visual elements. And oftentimes creators will spend an entire week producing a single video. Now compare that to the thought leader side, which is educational. When you're creating this type of content, you're focused on the questions that your audience is already asking. They search for this content. They want the answer, so you don't need to entertain them. You also don't need to present like you're on a stage. Instead, it should feel like a one-on-one Zoom conversation. So right now, I'm looking right into the camera, making eye contact with you, and I'm answering a question directly. So that's how a relationship begins to form. A simple talking head video is very effective for doing this. It's much easier to produce, it's authentic, and it positions you as someone who can explain complex topics to them. Over time, that will build trust and it will position you as a thought leader. Now let's look at the next row. On the influencer side, the goal is viral content. On the thought leader side, the content is specifically targeted. When someone is trying to go viral, they don't really care who watches the video. The goal is simply bigger numbers, more views, more reach. For influencers, more views does mean more advertising revenue, but those number of views, it's just a vanity metric when it comes to lead generation. When something goes viral, it's usually because it was entertaining or interesting enough that the platform pushes it out to a wider audience. But you don't get to control who that audience is. Virality spreads to anyone who might be entertained by it. Now, compare that to the thought leadership approach. As a thought leader, you actually have the opportunity to target your dream clients directly. You start by identifying the questions that your ideal clients are asking online. Then you create the content that answers those specific questions. And when someone is searching for that question and they find your video, that person is exactly the type of viewer that you want. Now, thought leadership content is intentionally, specifically targeted. It's not designed to go viral, and if one of your videos does go viral, it can actually create problems. It may attract a large audience of people who aren't your ideal clients, which can confuse the algorithm and make it harder for future content to reach the right viewers. So instead of chasing virality, thought leadership content focuses on reaching the right people, not the most people. And that's what makes it effective for lead generation. All right, on the next row, the influencer side, the reality is 1 in 1,000. And on the thought leader side, the approach is consistent. Okay, so promotional, entertaining, viral style content is actually very rare for it to succeed. You might see a video with millions of views and assume that that's normal, but what you don't see are the thousands of other videos that were uploaded that same day that never went anywhere. When I say 1 in 1,000, it's just an illustration of how rare viral success really is. So for example, my client Carrie Ann Perkins, she could make another video in the exact same format as the one that went viral, the dancing video I showed you earlier, and while it might get more views than a typical thought leadership video, the chances of it going viral again are extremely small. That's just the nature of viral content, and it's even harder when you're creating long-form videos. Now, compare that to the thought leader approach, which is built around consistency. Because we're creating content that answers questions from our dream clients that they're already searching for, there's a built-in audience for that content, and that audience shows up regularly. People are asking these questions every single day, every single month, year after year. So even if the views start as a trickle, they are specifically targeted views. And over time, those views add up. As you create more and more thought leadership content, momentum begins to build. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill that just gets bigger and bigger. The more questions you answer within a specific niche or category, the more authority you build in that category. And eventually, you start to dominate that category through volume and consistency of thought leadership content. Okay, let's look at the next row. On the influencer side, the content has a short shelf life. On the thought leader side, the content is discoverable. With short form social media style content, what typically happens is you post a video and it gets most of its views on the first day. Then over the next week, those views start to trickle down. By the second week, the views have almost completely disappeared. And a month later, the video has just been forgotten. A year later, you probably couldn't even find it if you tried. So it's as if you create a video, it gets viewed for a short period of time, and then you throw it onto a trash pile. Then you make another video, get some views, that one goes on the trash pile. So over time, the pile just gets bigger and bigger, filled with valuable content, but that's never going to be seen again. Now compare that to discoverable content. Thought leadership content is designed to be found through search. So it's evergreen, and instead of disappearing after a few days, the content stays available for years and years. So people can continue finding it whenever they search for that question. So instead of your content showing up on the trash pile, it becomes a growing library of answers that people can discover exactly when they need them. And that's a completely different way to think about content creation. Now let's look at the next row. On the influencer side, the metric is views. On the thought leader side, the outcome is leads. So when you're operating with a social media influencer mindset, the reward you get is seeing a big number of views. You feel validated. You feel like people love your content because those numbers are high. But in the back of your mind, there's often a realization that those views aren't actually impacting your business. They're not generating leads. They're not bringing in new clients. They're just numbers on a screen. Now compare that to a completely different type of channel. Sometimes you'll see a channel that doesn't have that many views. It might not have a very large subscriber count, but the people watching that content are the exact right audience. And because of that, the creator has more leads than they can handle. The leads turn into clients, and those clients turn into real revenue. In many cases, businesses built on this type of thought leadership content are generating 7 and 8 figures of revenue, not because they have the most views, but because the content is reaching the right people and turning those viewers into leads. Okay, the next row on the influencer side, the focus is YouTube subscribers, and on the thought leader side, the focus is on email subscribers. Maybe that surprises you, but when someone is trying to grow as a YouTube influencer, they tend to focus on building subscribers on the platform. And once they have those subscribers, the need is to nurture them there. So instead of creating discoverable content, they start creating content designed to keep those subscribers coming back. But thought leaders have a very different goal. Thought leaders don't see YouTube as a nurturing channel. They see it as a marketing channel. And the purpose of YouTube is to bring in new people who are actively searching for answers. And once those people find your content, the goal is to move that relationship off the platform. That's where the email subscribers come in. Growing your email list is one of the most valuable assets a business owner can build, because unlike social media subscribers, your email list is something that you actually control. And when someone joins your email list, you now have their contact information. You probably get their cell phone too. So this means you can reach out to them directly. You can continue the conversation, and you can invite them to have a strategy session with you. So that's when a viewer stops being just an audience member and becomes a potential client. That's the difference between connecting subscribers on a platform and building a real relationship with the people who may eventually work with you. All right, now let's look at the final row. On the influencer side, the content is creative. On the thought leader side, the content is tactical. When someone approaches content as a social media influencer, they often become an artist. The content becomes their art. It's their passion. It's their way of expressing themselves. They create what they feel inspired to create, what they're excited to talk about, and what they think will look good or sound good. So in that model, the content is really about the creator. But thought leadership content works very differently. It's not based on what I want to say or what I feel excited to talk about that day. Instead, it's very tactical. Thought leaders start with research. We look at what questions our audience is asking. We analyze what content already exists. We study the competition. We then decide exactly what content we're going to create, why we're creating it, and what the outcome should be. We can predict that. So instead of creating content based on inspiration, we create content based on strategy, And that's why thought leadership content consistently produces results. If a marketer advises you to create thought leadership content, there's a good chance that their strategy is actually focused on the column on the left. So what actually sets thought leadership content apart from other marketing strategies? Well, most marketing strategies are built around attention. They chase trends, they aim for virality, and they measure success as views and followers, where thought leadership content is built around authority. It's evergreen, it's discoverable, and it's specifically targeted to the people you want to work with. And instead of producing attention, it produces leads and relationships. In other words, influencer content tries to reach as many people as possible. Thought leadership content makes it possible for the right people to find you. And when you consistently publish this type of content, it creates something very powerful: thought leader dominance. So understanding the characteristics of thought leadership content, that's the first step. The next step is understanding the tactics that make category dominance possible. So in the episode I'll link to right there, I break down the strategy for achieving category dominance and how to implement it in your own business. So if you're serious about becoming a recognized authority in your category, watch the video Achieve Category Dominance. I'll see you there.